Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all after a long time. I'm really sorry that I've taken this longer break from Lead Genie, thanks to a lot of preoccupations that needed to be taken care of. Nonetheless, I'm back once again, and let's just continue with our discussions and journeys together, finding our path through the mazes of ancient Indian literature. All this while, the videos that you people got to see at hashtag Lead Genie were all discussions and uh, the act of throwing some light on the grand Indian narrative, that is Mahabharata. Nonetheless, what I've thought to do is, rather than continuing to follow the narrative toto, what we can do is we can focus on really interesting topics or situations or characters or events or incidents from the narrative to make it a little more interesting and engaging as far as our discussions are concerned. So I believe that the development of the storyline had advanced till where we are seeing that the Kauravas and the Pandavas were on the verge of entering the larger picture of the narrative. All this while, we saw the court of Hastinapur, the dynasty of the Hastinapur kingdom coming into being, starting with Shantanu, going through the story of Bhishma's birth, etc., etc. Then the marriage of Satyavati to Shantanu, then she giving birth to prospective heirs to the throne, and the rest of the story that follows, including the involvement of Ved Vyas, not just as the narrator or the storyteller behind the narrative, but also as an active character in the course of the Mahabharata. Nonetheless, what we can do from today onwards is jump from topic to topic to sort of situate our focus further. So, in continuation with where we had stopped last time, I think the topic I would like to start with today is to discuss how, irrespective of the fact that the Mahabharata is an ancient Indian text that is expected to be quite different from the technological, from the scientific, from the rather modern orientation of a reader today. We are expecting a bygone time. We are expecting, we generally expect a dated way of life, a more, you would say, dated social structure, a rather ancient and very different way of life, different kinds of people, different set of ideologies and point of views that these texts bring us, because we essentially consider ourselves to be modern, to be rather technologically advanced, to be a generation that is, though we somehow, thanks to the trajectory of our birth and our connection to the legacy of the Indian subcontinent and everything that has to do with its historical past, are a part of this this tradition, this continuity of this literary tradition. Nonetheless, the text, we take it for granted somehow that Mahabharata, okay, it's very far away from where I stand, and it has nothing to do with my kind of life, the lifestyle, the way of life I'm used to. Nonetheless, interesting to see is that surrogacy, or you would say, test tube baby, are rather modern, technologically advanced medical concepts that essentially are immediately accepted by us to be the product of the 21st century, to be the representative of the great heights that modern man has managed to achieve, thanks to his relentless sort of effort to become this superhuman, this alpha individual who is capacitated to work in every possible way to advance the mortality to sort of dynamically develop the various avenues of existence of man and thereby his procreation today. Nonetheless, how would you feel or how would you react if I told you that the earliest of references to, the act of surrogacy, or the instance of, the test tube baby way of procreating can be very interestingly traced back to the pages of the Mahabharata as well. Now, that sounds like a curious proposition, isn't it? Nonetheless, um thanks to certain events that I've already narrated to you in my prior, I think the last video, we already have got tangible example of how this is very true. This was actually the case when it came to, the birth of the Kauravas and the Pandavas in the course of the Mahabharata, the tale. On one hand, I've already told you that Gandhari, when she gave birth, which was not really a usual sort of natural way of giving birth, she sort of gave birth to a lump of flesh that had a heartbeat and some strands of hair on it, which proved that it was a product, it was a mammal. But then, it was quite an abstract sort of an entity, and Satyavati didn't know what to do with it. So again, we see her inviting her son Vedavyas to come in and help her with that. Who sort of enters the scene once again, and what does he do? He sort of takes that lump of flesh. He realizes that it's living and breathing, but it is not essentially a baby that is born. So something needs to be done with it. So what does he do? He sort of I won't say chop, but then somehow he dissects the piece down into 101 parts and places each one of those pieces inside an earthen pot with certain, medicinal herbs and solutions, etc. Hangs them up for a particular period of time, which is taken to be the gestational period for these, these sort of lumps of flesh to develop into entire organisms. Very similar to how in a modern day setup in a petri dish, the ovum and the sperm components from the mother and the father are sort of conjoined, and a zygote is formed, which is then placed back into the mother's womb to develop, and that is how a test tube baby is born, which is very similar in this case. Nonetheless, the parts don't go back into Gandhari's womb, but they are set there at a particular temperature in a closed room under surveillance, under proper setup to grow, and thereby, after a constricted period of time, expected to be born as 101 babies. 100 out of which are born as sons, and there is one daughter, because I don't know if most of you know, but the Kauravas, popularly remembered by the Indian, by readers as a team of 100 brothers, did have one sister by the name of Dushala, and 101 test tube babies under the patronage of Dhritarashtra and the mothering of Gandhari, along with the indispensable medical support of Vedavyas, are born. So quite interesting, I'm sure. So that's point number one that I wanted to discuss. And the second is a reference to, so that's, you find that an instance of the most advanced medical treatment, medical pursuit, which is like today, or say a decade or 2 decades ago, this is a process that became, that entered the horizon of imagination of the modern man. And with development of science and technology, it is like maybe a decade since a decade ago that man has successfully managed to, or say a couple of decades ago, that modern man finally managed to successfully make this happen, successfully give birth to test tube babies. But nonetheless, Mahabharata, which is an ancient Indian text back then, is actually giving you an instance of uh, how that existed as a possibility in the thinking process of the ancient Indian storytellers. So there is something to be really proud of, isn't it? I'm sure all of you present here with me, who are sort of sitting face to face and having this discussion, will be on the same page with me when we come across this little information and find another reason to be proud and to feel uh, enriched with this extremely rich legacy, literary legacy, that our forefathers, that our spiritual ancestors has have left back for us to hold on to, right? So the next topic was to find out how surrogacy also, which is a very modern concept, I must say, also has medically a very modern concept, because of course we have had instance, I mean, India as a social space, or the Indian society had for ages seen midwives and wives of the father other than the biological mother taking care of kids, which is also, of course, a version of surrogacy. Nonetheless, if we think about the original medical process or the original biological process, surrogacy meaning in that case, an individual other than the parents in question being responsible for the birth and procreation of a child. Do we find instances of that in the Mahabharata as well? Of course we do. For example, Vedavyas appears as a surrogate father to, Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidur, because I've already told you the story how when Satyavati's sons, Vichitra Bijo and Chitrangad, were unable to procreate, Vedavyas was invited, and the two queens, Ambika and Ambalika, along with a maid, were sent to her, and as a result of which the three brothers were born, Dhritarashtra, Pandu, the three half brothers were born Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidur, right? So, of course, he is one of the first instances of the surrogate father in the world of Mahabharata. Nonetheless, on the other hand, the curious case of the Pandavas, where it is thanks to the incantation recited by Kunti and their own Madri, the same incantation that was blessed upon Kunti before her marriage by Rishi Durvasa, who had sort of entrusted her with this blessing, that every time she would think of a god, of a particular celestial, and sort of recite this incantation, the particular god would be appearing in front of her and bless her with a son. So once they take their exile, after Pandu has sort of given up his throne, because he consciously believes that he is incapacitated to be rightful heir to the throne, because he is not capable of producing an heir further to continue the legacy of the kingdom of Hastinapur. He sort of retires to the forest along with his two queens. Once there, Kunti sort of spills her beans and informs that she has this capacity, which makes Pandu extremely happy, because even if he's not biologically fathering them, of course, these demigods, because they would be half, born of immortals and half of human parentage, human mother. So he would be very happy to father them. So he goes ahead and requests Kunti to do the same, and as a result, from Yama, or the god of justice, Yudhishthir is born. From Pavan, or the god of wind, Bhim is born, and from Indra, or the god of the gods, or the king of the gods, the king of the Indian pantheon of gods, Arjun is born. Now, once she comes back, of course, Madri is also rather jealous, and her spirits are down, because she too wants to be a mother. And both of them, Kunti and Madri, have the same problem. Pandu, their husband, is incapacitated to sort of reciprocate that way. So what he does is, what Kunti does is, she goes ahead and shares the incantation with Madri as well, and Madri goes ahead and recites it, thinking of the twin gods, the Ashwini Kumars, and as a result, the twin brothers of Nakul and Sahadev are born. So what is this if not surrogacy? A combination of, a human mother or a mortal mother and a series of immortal fathers result into the birth of the Pandavas. Now, isn't that an extremely interesting sort of trajectory to think of? And when you see these two teams, Kauravas on one hand, a group of brothers born out of the process that I just narrated to you, which is very similar to a modern medical process. The other, born out of surrogacy, and these two sets clash, resulting into sort of the greatest of war, the war of justice ever fought, which is the war of Kurukshetra. But nonetheless, how did they come till the war of Kurukshetra? That is also a very interesting trajectory to know. Nonetheless, I'll stop here for this time, and let's continue with that in our next video. Thank you, everyone. If you like the videos, if you want to continue to keep watching them, please like and share my videos, hit the bell icon and subscribe to my channel, and please encourage the endeavor #LeadGenie. Thank you.